Good morning. I think this is number 8. Same reality, different dreams. People may sleep on the same bed, under the same covers, yet their individual dreams are not the same. An ancient sage said, "We share the same one reality, yet do not realize it." For example, within the single reality of life and death, there are those who can enter into life and death without being bound by life and death. And there are those who are bound by life and death in the midst of life and death. And in the midst of the same common reality, one person is bound while another is freed. Is this not individual differences in the dreams? You usually make birth and death into one extreme, and absence of birth and death into another extreme. You make thinking into one extreme and non-thinking into another extreme. You make speech into one extreme and non-speech into another extreme. Here, I have neither the business of Zen monks nor anything transcendental. I just talk about getting out of birth and death. This is not a matter of simply saying this and letting the matter rest at that. You must see that which has no birth or death right in the midst of birth and death. The great master Yang visited the 6th patriarch of Zen and said, "The matter of birth and death is serious. Transitoriness is swift." The 6th patriarch said, "Why not comprehend the birthless and realize what has no speed?" Yang said, "Comprehension itself is birthless. Realization of the fundamental has no speed." My body's not working with me this morning. I woke up and I was 50. How old am I? 52? Yeah. I'm either 51 or 52. I can't remember. When Kalshan took leave of Dogshan asked, "Where are you going?" Kalshan replied, "To an unchanging place." Dongshan retorted, "Well, if it is an unchangeable place, how could there be any going?" Chalsan replied, "The going is also unchanging." Were these not realized people? You make thought one extreme and non-thinking another extreme. You make the unspoken outside of the spoken. Even if you understand the unspoken clearly, as soon as words are spoken, they block you. Why not study Zen in this way? Walk, stand, sit, and recline all day long without ever walking, standing, sitting, or reclining. Sometimes seekers come here, utter a phrase, and clap their hands. How does this amount to an understanding beyond dualistic extremes? You should think in this way. Clearly, I am in the midst of birth and death. How can I get free of birth and death? Don't say this itself is it, that you basically have no birth or death. It is not realized by your uttering this statement. There are those who hear someone say there is no birth and death and immediately say, "Right, there is originally no birth or death." If you make your interpretation in this way, it will be impossible to understand. Since it does not admit of rationalization and contrived understanding, it does not admit of being explained away. How can you work on it? An ancient said, "I only use what you bring me to point out the entryway to you." Take care. Watch yourself. As I see members of present-day Zen communities, it is as if none of them are talking about this reality. Now, wherever you go, there are Zen communities and teachers preaching Zen and Tao, holding interviews and lectures, all talking about this matter. Why do I say that they haven't been talking about it at all? They are talking, to be sure, but they cannot actually speak of it. Not only can they not speak of it, they are unable to see it. Not knowing how to work on it as it is, they simply say, when the true imperative is brought up in its entirety, the 10 directions are cut off. Any Buddha that shows up will get a beating, and any demon that shows up will get a beating. They fanatically talk Zen, but never touch upon what is most urgent. What I talk of here is something that others neglect. I casually pick it up from a trash heap and ask people about it, but they cannot say anything. Right now, when people who have entered the room, inquired into the way, and attained an understanding, see an incense stand. Gee, I'm not really reading this right. Right now, when people who have already entered the room, inquired into the way, and attained understanding, see the incense stand, is it an incense stand or not? If they say it is an incense stand, this is the same as ordinary people. If it is not an incense stand, to whom was the incense stand given away? Lightly question them, and they go to pieces. This is because they have always been working in idleness. Now let me ask you a question. Never mind about since you've been here. Before you went journeying, before you entered this community, when you saw an incense stand, what did you call it? You called it an incense stand. Everyone calls it an incense stand. Why do you not think why you call it an incense stand? Zen should be studied in this way, but you must understand what has been in you since beginningless time. You must understand what has been in you since beginningless time. Master Shui-san said, if you don't see the original reality, obstacles will follow you all along. If people have obstacles, they go wrong, countless thousands of times. My teacher said, suppose a bit of filth gets stuck on the tip of your nose, of the nose of a sleeping man, totally unknown to him. When he wakes up, he notices a foul smell. Sniffing his shirt, he thinks his shirt stinks, so he takes it off. But then, whatever he picks up stinks. He doesn't realize the odor is on his nose. If someone who knows tells him it has nothing to do with the things themselves, he stubbornly refuses to believe it. The knowing one tells him to simply wipe his nose with his hand, but he won't. Were he willing to wipe his nose, only then would he know that he was already getting somewhere, or only then would he know he was getting somewhere. Finally, he would wash it off with water, and there would be no foul odor at all. Whatever he smelled, that foul odor wouldn't be there from the start. Studying Zen is also like this. Those who will not stop and watch themselves on their own instead pursue intellectual interpretation. But that pursuit of intellectual interpretation, seeking rationales and making comparative judgments, is completely off. If you would turn your attention around and watch yourself, you would understand everything. As it is said, when one faculty returns to the source, the 6 functions are all in abeyance. Just see in this way, and you will have some enlightened understanding. I seriously hope that my reading continuity issues are only on my end of the comprehension problem. understand immediately. Ha ha ha! You still don't understand on your own. I tell you this, if you still don't understand on your own, then how will you understand if you go somewhere else? At other places, they either put you through changes or abruptly fixate you. Here, I neither put you through changes nor abruptly fixate you. This saves energy and is easy to comprehend. So why don't you understand? Because of your millions of rationalizations, these make it hard for you to understand. Buddhahood is an easily comprehended state, comfortable and pleasant. But even though it is easily understood, nevertheless it is hard to enter into and hard to work on. At other places, if they abruptly fixate you, then you have something to work on. If they put you through changes, then you have something to chew on. People come here and declare that they do not dare to say they are right. So why don't you dare to say you are right? Then how should you be? Why not look at it in this way? I'm just afraid you'll misunderstand here and get the wrong idea. I just want to have you understand immediately, without stirring a single thought. Then again, there are those who say, according to my view, everything is all right. They're like scorched sprouts, like a rotten seed, which will never grow. When you have declared you're right, then how could you be helped out anymore? This is why it is said that ordinary people may still evolve. There are also those who, having understood, still cannot express it in speech. Even if they talk of it, they do not make any sense. Don't be careless and crude. Examine carefully. I am a fellow seeker with you. If I comprehend, you must comprehend too. If you don't comprehend, I don't comprehend either. Have you not read how Zhang Sha pointed to a white spot on the ground in front of him and asked the student, "See?" The student answered, "Yes." Zhang Sha said, "I see, and so do you. Why don't you understand?" One of my fellow students, one Elder Li, saw my late teacher for a year and a half. Every time he went in for personal instruction, the teacher would just say to him, "Elder, have you distinguished black and white at all?" Every time he went, this is what happened. How do you interpret talk like this? How do you work? Nowadays, there are no adepts like this helping people. There are no elders who seek like this either. Anyone else would have gotten upset. One day he heard the teacher say in the lecture, "Going in and out the same door, heredity enemies." Going in and out the same door, heredity enemies. And suddenly his previous understanding turned out to be like flowers in the sky, and he now saw the truth. You should work in this way and realize enlightenment in this way. Zen should be studied this way. As none of you have had an awakening, you should look straight into your vital spirit. If no one told you, and no one instructed you, it would be hard to work. Now that you've met someone, you should work. You must distinguish black and white before you can do it. Instant enlightenment. Those who are now on the journey should believe that there is such a thing as instant enlightenment. In other places, they should also say that there is such a thing as instant enlightenment. If they have no instant enlightenment, how can they be called Zen communities? It's just because what they have inherited and transmit is only the practice of looking at the model cases of the ancients. They may contemplate one or two examples and get a rough bit of knowledge, a bit of interpretation. If there is any point they cannot understand, They seek a gap to bore into, seeking understanding. And once they have understood, they say the matter is only like this. And then they immediately go on to circulate it in the Zen communities. None of them have ever spoken of what instant enlightenment is. If there is no such thing as instant enlightenment, how can you free your mind of the 25 states of being in the 3 realms? How can you free your mind of the sensation of uncertainty? Now, there have already been professional priests coming in here saying perception is unobscured, totally accepting perception and claiming that it is right. That means that they do not see what is not obscured. When I ask them about other worlds, they do not know. And when I question them about the senses and objects, it turns out they have not broken through. How can they imagine that the feelings and perceptions of ordinary people are exactly the same as instant enlightenment? Today, I say to everyone, just trust that there is such a thing as instant enlightenment. It is like a farmer finding an alchemical pill as he plows the fields. After taking it, the whole family goes to heaven. It is also like a commoner being appointed prime minister. In the teachings it says that those ordinary feelings and perceptions of yours are like unbaked clay, which is useless before being fired. You have to bake it in a hot fire before it is useful. That is like instant enlightenment. When I came out of Sichuan, I only called on one person. I knew this person's talk was the same as the ancients. I once asked my teacher, I've heard it said that there is enlightenment in Zen. Is that so? My teacher said, if there were no enlightenment, how could it be attained? Just investigate in an easygoing way. So, I studied in a relaxed frame of mind. There was a certain elder Fu, whose insight was so luminously clear that I used to go to him with questions. But he just used to tell me, you must make a living on your own. Don't come question me. One day, he recited a story to me. Jiao showed some fire to a student and said, don't call it fire. What is it? I contemplated this for 3 years, always reflecting, how dare I use the feelings and perceptions of an ordinary man to ask about the realization of sages? I've also heard what it says in the Lotus Scripture. This truth cannot be understood by the discriminations of discursive thought, and have always kept this in mind. Today, when you say you are right just as you are, that is because you have produced an interpretive understanding, and so do not understand. Once my teacher went to the residence of Judge Li, who invited him into the library. After lighting some incense, the judge picked up a copy of the Transmission of the Lamp, and he said to the teacher, although I'm a man of the world, I've always taken an interest in this path. Whenever I read this book, I find many points I do not understand. My teacher said, this matter is not understood in that way. You need to have realization of enlightenment first. If you have enlightenment, you naturally need not ask others about whatever you do not understand. If you have no enlightenment, even what understanding you do have is not yet right either. The judge remarked, my teacher, you have spoken rightly. As for me, since I was the superintendent of guests, I attained understanding at the fireside. After that, there was nothing I did not understand. You must see the reality of instant enlightenment yourself before you can attain it. No one in the Zen communities of present time tells of it. Let's See, it's no. We're gonna come back later. Have a good day.